Imagine being a witness at the Nuremberg trials. The war is over, the world is exhausted. Justice is finally being served against those who orchestrated unimaginable evil. One by one, 10 men step forward. Men who once held immense power in Nazi Germany, whose decisions helped shape one of history's darkest chapters. These were not ordinary men. They were ministers, generals, and propagandists, leaders who helped plan war, enforce tyranny, and sustain one of the most destructive regimes in modern history. Now, stripped of their power, they stood together at the gallows. One by one, each faces his death, until the last man, Julius Streicher. As this last Nazi is brought forward to face the gallows, he turns toward the witnesses and shouts something unexpected. Not a plea, not an apology, not a political slogan, but the name of a Jewish holiday. Purimfest 1946. What a bizarre phrase at the end of the Nuremberg trials, spoken in the final seconds of the last Nazi's life. Why would a man who dedicated his life to Jewish hatred invoke the memory of the most joyous Jewish festival of Purim in his final breath? All 10 condemned defendants from the main Nuremberg trial were executed the same night, October 16, 1946. Streicher was among them and is generally considered the last to be hanged due to the order of execution. What about the Purim reference and the reference to the holiday about Queen Esther? Did the Nazi really say that? And is this documented anywhere? While multiple reputable historical sources repeat the documented wording, the original eyewitness report was by journalist Joseph Kingsbury Smith, who recorded that he shouted Purimfest 1946 on the scaffold of the execution chamber. For our own purposes here, let's pull up Newsweek. On its reports of the Nuremberg trial, we have the original archived article right here, and let's go down to the last paragraph, where it reads, "Only Julius Streicher went without dignity. He had to be pushed across the floor, wild-eyed and screaming, 'Heil Hitler.' Mounting the steps, he cried out, 'And now I go to God,' and he stared at the witnesses facing the gallows and shouted, 'Purimfest 1946, and Newsweek had to explain to the general audience, Purim is a Jewish feast. So one of the most interesting things about the Jewish faith and the Jewish nation is that when we refer back to our scriptures and to our prophetic texts, there's a general principle that must be applied. And the principle is as the following. Ma'aseh avot siman lebanim, which means whatever happened, the experiences of our ancestors will resurface for us, will revisit us in every generation. So when we're learning Torah, we're not just learning about the past, we're not just learning about fairy tales, we're learning about patterns. Patterns that repeat themselves and are promised to us that it would resurface and revisit. And if we need to gain perspective or understanding into our current challenging situation, we refer to the stories, the commentaries, the insights, and the perspectives. So in this case, this is a classic situation where you have an ancient story of Esther who needs to save the Jewish nation from genocide. The one to come up with the genocide idea is Haman, or in English, Haman. And Haman is one of the top advisors to the most powerful ruler of the world, the Persian emperor, Ahasuerus. Now, in the story, anyone who knows the Esther story, anyone who knows the scroll of Esther will know that there is a part of it where there is a hanging on the gallows. And it's not only Haman that gets hung, but his 10 sons as well. Who are Haman's 10 sons? They are the 10 ministers, the top deputies of Haman, who are hired to oversee the death camps and the executions and the genocidal procedures of the Persian Empire. And they are spread out. Persia ruled over 127 regions or provinces, all the way to India, to Africa, throughout in the entire Middle East and parts of Europe. The Persian Empire was vast, and these 10 deputies, or 10 sons of Haman's, were in charge of the entire final solution of that day. And what happened was a Nahafochu, which means in Hebrew a reversal.
Purim tells the story of the dramatic reversal of fate, when the day destined for Jewish destruction became a day of survival and victory. And Haman, together with his 10 sons, were hanged on the very gallows he had prepared for Mordechai.
So with the reversal of fate, with the Nahafochu that took place, the threat is gone, the threat is eliminated. Haman is dead. His 10 sons, the ministers in charge of the genocide, gone. The threat has been reversed, and you would have thought everything would have been okay by now, right? But then the Megillah tells us that Ahasuerus, after everything has been reversed, he asks his wife Esther, he says, "Is there anything else I can do for you, dear?" And she says, "Yes, there's one more thing." And this is the strangest request, and this is what's going to lead us back to Nazi Germany. Look at the request that she makes, because on a pshat, simple, literal level of the story, it makes no sense. Her request is to do tomorrow also according to what was done today, and let the 10 sons of Haman be hung again. Haman and his 10 sons should go through the hanging again, a second time. So let me ask you, friends, why hang a corpse a second time around? Once someone is dead, you can't hang them again. But on the simple version of the story, the way the rabbis explain it is Esther just wanted their bodies to remain into the second day to evoke fear amongst the people. This is the pshat simple view, and it's correct, but Megillat Esther is a revelation of that which is hidden and concealed. And it's a prophetic code into the future. So what exactly was Esther alluding to when she said this? So is it possible that Julius Streicher, the last Nazi, was just quoting Book of Esther? Of course, it's always possible. I mean, you have 10 sons of Haman, 10 sons of Hitler, 10 deputies of Hitler, I mean. So the question is this, it's always possible, but what are the chances? Let's look a little deeper into the events around the Nuremberg trials. One of the details I'll just throw at you right now is that it wasn't clear how they would be executed, the Nazis. They had requested other forms of execution like firing squad, but somehow at the last minute it changed to gallows, death by hanging. That's very interesting too. Another interesting detail about the trial is how long it was postponed. The date of the execution was postponed again and again and again until it finally landed on October 16th. So just remember this date, October 16th, 1946. The date is very important, and we'll see why. Let's look a little closer. And before we take that investigative tool into our sources, there's one last detail that I think you should see right away. From the archive, we've pulled up the New York Times, and this is a direct headline from 1946. Göring ends life by poison, 10 others hanged in Nuremberg prison for Nazi war crimes. The interesting part here is the following. 10 others are hung, but there is an 11th named Göring who ends his life just by suicide, by cyanide poison. Somehow, they still don't know, he was able to sneak in some cyanide in his jail cell, and killed himself before facing the gallows. So how is this information relevant? That there were 10 Nazis, but really originally there were supposed to be 11, but he committed suicide. Let's go and take further, deeper look into the Judaism's oral tradition. We have the written tradition, Torah shebe'chtav, and we have Torah shebe'al peh, and we're going to look in the Talmud and watch closely.
So in the Talmud, we get introduced to Haman's daughter. She's the 11th child. But let's look in the English to see what exactly happened to her. Haman's daughter was standing on the roof and saw someone leading another through the street. She said, "Who are these?" They told her, "The one sitting on the horse is Mordechai, the Jew, and the one leading him is Haman, her father." So she took a chamber pot. That's what your restroom was before there was plumbing. And she threw its contents, the sewage, onto Haman, her father's head. But when she realized it was her father, she went up to the roof and threw herself down and died by suicide.
Now, can it get any more strange than it already is? And the answer is, put on your seatbelt. There's more. Let's look at what we have so far. 10 deputies of Hitler, and one commits suicide, the 11th, in prison. And we have the 10 sons of Haman who were hung on the gallows, but there was an 11th, his daughter. Is there anything more we can look at? Hold on. One of the rumors that were flying around the Nuremberg trials is when they found Göring's body and did the autopsy, they found that he was wearing women's panties or women's underwear, which would make him a cross-dresser or a closet transvestite. Not believing this to be true, needing to confirm the rumors, I found many sources on YouTube and on the internet referring to his questioned sexuality. Some of the following brief clips were found in such a video.
But Göring exhibited mostly in private, due to his clothes, makeup and jewelry, a tendency towards transvestism, that is, a man who derives sexual pleasure from dressing in female clothing. And often rather effeminate clothing and uniforms set tongues wagging that the apparently twice happily married Reichsmarschall was a secret homosexual, or at least that he was bisexual. Such rumors and gossip have of course entered popular culture since World War II, and Göring has often been portrayed privately as effeminate or indeed as a transvestite. Benito Mussolini's son-in-law, the Italian Foreign Minister Count Ciano, recalled meeting Göring in 1941 and commented on his appearance, that Göring was wearing a fur coat like, quote, a high-grade prostitute wears to the opera, end quote. Also wore a diamond-encrusted pilot observer badge, and so on, fueling rumors that he was rather like a woman with a jewelry box, rather than a heroic soldier.
So with all the information I presented to you, I'm going to allow you to draw your own conclusions. My job is just to present the sources, the information, you connect the dots, you arrive at your own conclusions. So is there more to this story? Is it one giant coincidence? In the grand epic of Esther that we read on Purim, what may seem like a wild series of coincidences is actually a mind-blowing, jaw-dropping dance of divine providence, meticulously orchestrated through the most mundane, natural, and everyday happenings. In other words, Esther comes to teach us there are no coincidences. So with this idea that there are no coincidences, let's go back to the very page in the scroll of Esther where the sons of Haman are hung, and we're going to see something very mysterious. The first thing to know about the scroll of Esther is that it stands as its own independent scroll. It is not read from a printed book, but from a handwritten parchment, just like a Torah scroll. Second, it is a commandment for every Jew, men, women, and even children, to hear it read publicly. Third, there are very precise laws governing both how it must be written and how it must be read.
When it comes to the 10 sons of Haman, the writing itself follows a unique format. Their names are arranged in a distinctive vertical column-like pattern. Then comes a fascinating rule about how this section is read. The Talmud teaches that when the reader reaches the 10 sons, all their names must be recited in a single breath, without pausing to inhale. It must be read quickly, continuously, with no breaks.
הרגו היהודים ועבד 500 איש ואת ברשנדדה ואת אלפון ואת אספדה ואת בורדה ואת עדליה ואת ארידתה ואת ממשתה ואת אריסאי ואת ארידאי ואת ויזד 10 בני המן בן עמדתה.
There is another striking detail. The scribe must also write certain letters in this passage unusually small, while others are written larger than normal. These exact letter sizes and arrangements are found in every Megillah scroll across the world for more than 2,000 years. According to tradition, this original format traces back to the first recording of the story under the authority of Queen Esther herself. And so we are left with a mystery. Why were these particular letters written differently? Let us take a closer look, because within these unusual letters may lie a hidden key to understanding the deeper message we have been searching for. In the traditional scroll, notice that there are 3 unusually small letters in that passage. There is the Taf, there is the Shin, and there is the Zayin, which equal 400, 300, and 7, with a total of 707. There's also an oversized Vav, which equals 6. According to the Zohar, the letter Vav represents the 6th millennium, which represents the year 5000 to 6000, that era of 1,000 years on the Hebrew calendar. So now we have 3 small letters in the code that represent 707. And then we have one very large letter, Vav, which represents the 6th millennium. Together, that would be the year 5707 on the Hebrew calendar, which on the civil calendar corresponds directly to the year 1946. What happened in 1946? The Nuremberg trials. The sons of Haman and Haman himself returned for a second round. But this time we were able to stop them as Queen Esther, she asked for the royal decree from the king that tomorrow the sons of Haman shall be hung as they were today in Persia.
Remember I told you to hold a date, October 16th, 1942, and I said that the trial was postponed for months until it landed on a specific day. That day was on the Hebrew calendar, Hoshana Rabbah, which according to our mystical tradition, this is the exact day that the king from the royal palace, the King of Kings, executes punishments, right? The karma catches up to the nations of the world, especially when they've been raising their sword against Israel. So here's what I want to land with, friends, is that Megillat Esther, the scroll of Esther, literally means Megillah, comes from the word Gilui, or Gilah, means to reveal, Nigle, to reveal. And Esther comes from the Hebrew word seter, which means secret, concealment. So being that it's the last book of the Tanakh, the whole expanded version of the Torah, the Tanakh, the 24 holy books of the nation of Israel, one of the last ones to be included, if not the last one, was Esther. Meaning there's some kind of revelation or secret or message to the future. And what is the message for the future of Israel encoded in this scroll? And the messages could be seen in cryptic form through the royal decrees that were stated in the Megillat Esther, in the story. The royal decrees are all coming from King Ahasuerus, but we also, on a mystical level, we see these decrees as coming from even higher than a human king, but meaning it's coming from the King of Kings. What are the decrees and what can we learn from them? We're not going to go over all of them, but the important ones. So one of the decrees was instituted by our nemesis, our enemy, Haman. He initiated it, but it was approved
and it became a decree, and that was genocide, anti-Semitism, wickedness plotting against Israel. There is no nation on earth that has to face the amount of insanity and passionate hatred towards a particular group. There's no other group on the nation that has experienced attempted genocide again and again and again. So remember when Esther wanted the king to lift this decree, he said he couldn't. Do you remember that? He said once there is something made, a decree, it cannot be overturned. So this is the first lesson of exile. This is the first lesson that Israel would be going through for the next 2,000 years. And the first one is that there'll always be people in the force of Amalek that will come to try and destroy you. The second decree, was that when Esther said, could you revoke it? And the king said no. He said, while we can't revoke it, we can add to it. So we can add another decree, and that would be that Esther and her people, the Jewish people, would be able to pick up arms, assemble, organize, and defend themselves. So there'll be a time in history where we will, and we're living in those times right now. And the world hates the fact. It's very interesting. The same enemies that hate our existence also hate the fact that we can defend ourselves. The same enemies that don't want us to have a homeland of our own and would rather see us homeless in the world, they also hate us just as much for defending ourselves. It's crazy, madness. And the third decree, which is the one that I love that we spent time on this video looking at, is that all evil will never win in the end. God wins in the end, and all evil will perish, will be stopped in their tracks. And this happened on Hoshana Rabbah, on the day where the decrees are sent out. Exactly was the Nuremberg trials. We saw the codes, we saw the connections, we saw the synchronicities. So Hashem is telling us that no matter what, when darkness rises and plots and seeks your destruction, it might be very frightening. It might be very loud and make a lot of noise on the planet. And the threat is real, and the threat of destruction is real. But know this, Israel will never, ever be destroyed. And those that plot against Israel, whether through journalism, media, political parties, ideologies, wherever there is anti-Semitism, there is no blessing in it. It will be stopped. That particular ideology or political party or nation, doesn't matter if they're the largest nation on earth. We've seen it again and again. They get destroyed from within. So finally, Esther, at the end of the story of Esther, she institutes a feast day, a day where we gift each other with mishloach manot, matanot le'evyonim, gifts for the poor, and a banquet, a seuda. And so, and the listening of the Megillah being read publicly to bring meaning to our lives. All of these are ways to divert the negative energy and darkness away from us. So it's through joy, through feasting, through loving, through gifting. And those that are poor, meaning physically poor or spiritually poor, we should gift them with kind words, with invitations to our homes on Shabbat. And we should always, whenever we feel we're going into oblivion, into meaninglessness, anxiety, depression, worry, then Esther says you listen to the reading of the Megillah. Know that there is this whole, on the global stage, things may be playing out like a masquerade, but it is only that, a masquerade. Underneath it all, behind it all, is the hand of the Almighty, the divine providence, very active and very involved in every detail of history and every detail of our personal lives. So God bless you out there. Let's be strong together. Let's gift each other through joy, through strength, through blessing, through love of the Holy One, only One, the Almighty One, the God of Israel. And I'll see you next class.